Hi, thank you so much for joining us today for our cybersecurity webinar. My name is Michelle Barnes and I'm the sales manager here at Roland Schorr Tower. For those of you that aren't familiar with RST, we are a managed service provider, IT, servicing all types and sizes of businesses across the US. We are headquartered in Hawaii and we have offices in Oregon, Washington, and Arizona. One of the major focuses in 2020, even before the current COVID-19 situation, was to increase the security posture of our clients and minimize their risk. We have been looking so forward to putting this on webinar for you. On to the introductions and some little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get started. First, we have Tim Hunt and Yoshi Marinko. They are with the U.S. Secret Service Cyber Fraud Task Force here in Seattle. After they share a little about the current threat landscape, we will hear from Desiree Thomas with Datto and Tony Sollers with RST will also be joining our discussion. Desiree is a strategic channel partner with Datto, a world leader provider of business continuity and disaster recovery solutions. She works with businesses like ours to help business and data protection and recovery. Finally, we have Tony Sollers, our CTO here at Roland Schorr Tower, and Tony will be discussing our multi-layer approach to security. Additionally, we will be giving away gift cards after each presenter. We will be emailing those to you after the webinar. If for any reason your email differs from what you signed up with, please let us know. We want to make sure we get those to you. Before I turn it over to Tim and Yoshi, I wanted to remind you that you can add questions along the way in the Q&A section of this app. We will be answering as many questions as possible along the way. I would also like to thank all of you for joining, the attendees and our presenters. Okay, let's get started. Tim and Yoshi, take it away.
Hello, my name is Yoshi Marinko. I'm a network intrusion analyst with the Seattle Cyber Fraud Task Force with the Secret Service, and Tim Hunt is with me.
Hi, I'm Tim Hunt. I supervise the Seattle Secret Service Cyber Fraud Task Force here in Seattle.
And some of the topics we want to cover today is to introduce the U.S. Secret Service Investigative Mission and Cyber Fraud Task Force model. We want to go into the current investigative trends and priorities of our task force. Also want to cover some information about cybercrime statistics and also mitigation methods. First of all, the Secret Service started in 1865. We like to say that it was the last thing that Abraham Lincoln did before he was assassinated. We were founded as an anti-counterfeiting organization to combat counterfeit currency during the U.S. Civil War. The Secret Service didn't officially take on protection of the president until the assassination of William McKinley in 1901. And that was, as we say, was the advent of what the Secret Service refers to as our dual mission of both executive protection and investigations. We were then finally incorporated into the Department of Homeland Security in March of 2003. Previous to that, we were part of the Department of the Treasury. Our cyber investigative mission primarily lies in the financial crime sector. This includes crimes involving credit cards, payment cards, PII, professional health information, and
intellectual property.
Intellectual property. I don't know why I can't remember IP for some reason. Intellectual property and network intrusions for profit. After 9/11, the Secret Service was directed to form a series of what we call cyber fraud task forces. Cyber fraud task forces are a strategic partnership of industry, academia, and law enforcement, which includes state, local, and federal levels. For example, in our Seattle Cyber Fraud Task Force, Costco and Microsoft, as well as others, are part of our task force, as well as local law enforcement organizations, local police departments. The Cyber Fraud Task Force mission is to deter, investigate, suppress, and prosecute technology-based crime. Currently, there are about 40 cyber fraud task forces. Almost all of them are obviously in the continental US, but we do also have one in France, and Hawaii. Our task force in Seattle meets about 3 times a year, and for sure, if you're interested in a collaboration with us, you can reach out to us. We'll give you our contact information at the end of this presentation. It's just a map outlining where our task forces are around the country. Our investigative priorities are as follows. Any cases with any kind of significant financial impact we look into. Also crimes that result in damage to systems and any type of loss to businesses. Organized groups and multi-defendant organization type cases. And anything obviously that straddles state lines, multi-jurisdiction investigations. New technology and schemes. Theft of intellectual property, and any type of situation that might involve persistent attacks. As far as any kind of cyber crime trend, we are seeing a radical shift from point of sales, or what we call back of house attacks, to e-skimming, which uses compromised e-commerce websites. Also, you may have heard of business email compromises. We're seeing a lot of those coming in lately. And ransomware attacks, that's big in the news lately. We also get involved in any kind of crypto mining on enterprise and cloud systems. We are also seeing a radical shift between law enforcement performing the forensic response and analysis to law enforcement now collaborating with private forensic investigators who are now performing response and remediation under direction of outside legal counsel. There's a lot more involvement with legal counsel nowadays. But we in law enforcement, when called on, when asked for assistance, will work with all these entities. You ask what e-skimming is. It's skimming code that is inserted maybe on an e-commerce platform, a payment card processing web page. It then captures credit card, debit card, and or personally identifiable information, or what we call PII. What happens is a person might go on to website, want to purchase a certain item, is asked for their credit card information. They type that credit card information in there, and if that website has experienced a data breach, possibly, then that credit card information can be exfiltrated to a third-party system or server, which can then be doled out in some manner. Sometimes what we see is that information is then sold on the dark web for money, for profit. And this can occur on either the victim system or via third-party services, as I've already mentioned. Different types of points of entry on e-skimming can be either the victim network can be compromised, the payment platform itself can be compromised, third-party entities and supply chains. So in other words, there can be a compromise at any point along the way. Methods that can be used to compromise the system is just simply brute force techniques. Somebody inserting in what they might think is the password over and over again and adjusting it to see if they can get in. And also any type of SQL injection. A unauthorized file can be uploaded, and phishing email or spear phishing emails is also a very popular tactic. Next thing that we're seeing a lot of is ransomware attacks. Ransomware is basically malware. Ransomware attacks employ malware to encrypt portions of a computer or network. A bad actor can extort a certain financial sum from the victim in order for the data to be unlocked. So for example, if you're the victim and the bad actor reaches out to you and says, hey, I've encrypted all your data on your system, but if you give us a certain amount of money, a sum of money, we can give you the key to unencrypt that data and give it back to you. That's some of what happens. In some instances, we've seen that the victim can negotiate the ransom, if you will. And unfortunately, there is no guarantee that even if you pay the ransom, that data will be released to you. So lately, this is where we see a lot of cyber insurance policies kicking in and legal counsel coming into play with advising what a victim should do. Usually the attack vector is via a phishing or spear phishing email, i.e. you get an email or somebody in an organization gets an email and they click on the link, and then next thing you know, malware is attached to your system and the ransomware starts attacking you. The next couple of slides are just examples of things in the media describing different ransomware attacks. This one talks about Baltimore getting attacked, city of Baltimore, and they were extorted for $6 million. Ransomware can be unleashed in different areas in different cities across the same state or even the same country. 22 Texas towns in this situation were hit by ransomware attack. This was back in August 2019 when it was reported. And this slide just talks about how not only government systems, but also other just private sector businesses can be attacked as well. BEC attacks, or business email compromises. These are scams that usually involve spoofing a real email account. So in other words, a business receives an email and thinks that they're talking to somebody that they normally talk to. And that bad actor who is using that spoofed account might then email a fraudulent wiring instructions to them and then extort money that way. A lot of times the victim and the entity that they're communicating with may not even realize that a BEC is happening. And so I guess just a piece of advice, when you're corresponding with somebody primarily by email, make sure that you're actually emailing the people that you think you're emailing. In this example on this slide, timothy.hunt@acme.corp.com is the actual email, but a bad actor can apply for an email address and maybe change it one letter off to timothy.hunt@acmecorp.com. And if you're not careful, you could be talking to somebody in Nigeria, unfortunately, who's out to steal your money.
Can I interject something?
Yeah.
The government has decent results with retrieving the money if somebody is a victim of a BEC, but the critical thing is for us to become involved within 72 hours. There is a waiting period usually between when the money is originally received and it can be sent overseas. So if we can be involved within 72 hours and the case meets a certain financial threshold, I think it's about $20,000, then we can work with other federal governmental entities to try and get that money before it goes overseas. But it is critical that we're involved as early as possible, and it's very critical that we're involved within the first 72 hours.
These attacks may or may not employ malware. Basically, these are people that are preying on the possibility that you're not actually communicating directly to your intended to the people that you're trying to communicate with, i.e. In this situation, maybe a simple phone call, just picking up the phone could alleviate an attack. What we find is a lot of times people are just not directly communicating with each other, and hence something like this can happen. Okay, so cybercrime statistics, just a few things to keep in mind. A lot of times, bad actors will leverage either stolen and or weak passwords. So that's 81% of the tactic that they used. They'll just brute force their way in. And also they'll do port scanning and other methods to try to break into your system. About 51% of the time, they involve organized criminal groups. But I want to highlight in the slide too, the top item here, 75% of the time, they are perpetrated by outsiders. This slide, I guess, a key thing to note is that the financial sector obviously bears the brunt of victimhood, but other sectors as well, healthcare. Across the board, we see a lot of data breaches. What else do we find in common? Malware being installed via malicious email attachments, 66%. But to note, most of all, a lot of breaches are financially motivated. So how do we stop this from happening? In the case of BECs, as I already said, pick up the phone, communicate directly with the people that you're dealing with, especially if you're about to pay a large sum of money for services rendered. We can't be sure that the people that you're emailing are the people that you're actually communicating with. Ransomware, make sure that your system is backed up regularly. Use of firewalls, filtering out potentially harmful email traffic can help with any type of malware that might try to infect your system. Also use antivirus software and execute that regularly. If you have an IT department or if you yourself can monitor any type of remote desktop program activity, that's actually a really smart thing to do too, because a lot of times the bad actors will try to remotely tap into your system. And having a managed service provider can also help, especially if you're not too fluent with the cyberways. And again, try to use strong passwords, because brute force attacks are very common. Actually, that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. The Seattle Field Office Cyber Fraud Task Force can be reached at the following phone number, 206-553-1922. And these are Tim's and my email address. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or any issues that might come up that you need assistance with. And that's my question slide.
Well, thank you so much, Yoshi and Tim. We really appreciate this presentation. So does anybody have any questions right now? Well, right now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and give away our first gift card. And the first one is going to go to Mike Moore at Moore Financial. And up next, we are going to be having Desiree Thomas with Datto. Be sure to put your questions in the Q&A sections, guys. It does, at the end, we'll kind of go through as many as we can.
And better, sorry, first there, once again, the normal struggle of muting yourself and then not muting yourself. So what I said, thank you, Michelle, for the warm introduction. I really appreciate that. Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Yoshi, that was an awesome presentation. I think that you took a lot of my statistics. So I'm pretty much done. I'm just going to mic drop right now. Okay, my name is Desiree Thomas. I work for a company called Datto. There's a good chance you probably have never heard of us before, and it's not because we're not a big company. We're massive company around the world, but what we do is we have the tools to help companies like Roland Schorr Tower support small to medium-sized businesses. So whether that be business continuity, security, all of those great tools that you use on a day-to-day basis. I'm coming from Calgary, Alberta, good old Canada. I'm presenting to you. I'm one of the channel development managers at Datto, and what that normally means is I do these presentations live in person. So unfortunately, that's not the case right now, but you get to see my lovely office here in Calgary. Always exciting place to be. I'm going to be talking really a lot of the things that were already covered, but going really about the history of what is ransomware, who are these bad guys, and then what are the things and steps that you need to keep in place to help keep your businesses secure. Where I want to start off with today is just really talk about kind of the history of the world of all the things. We can think about throughout history, there's always been these big transformations that have happened. And whether even just as an example, the Trojan War. And now we're even looking at this, I would argue to say 20 years from now, 50, 60, 100 years from now, we're going to be looking at this and this being our digital transformation stage. And every one of these moments that we've had throughout history, there's been bad actors that have been taking advantage of that. And as was said in Yoshi's presentation earlier, the bad actors are definitely taking advantage of everything that's going on around us. The fact that information means so much nowadays. Businesses can be ran just on the fact that the amount of information they're getting is worth so much money, whether it be because that information could be sold in some sort of marketing capacity, or whether it be that your information is so valuable that you need it, that you'll pay someone to get it back. Data is king. This is their information age. And so we're seeing, especially even in the last 220 days or whatever it's been since the beginning of March, that the transformation of security, these bad guys are seeing it, and doesn't matter where that we are, we need to be having these conversations about, well, how are we keeping our businesses secure? So I don't know about you guys, but March 6th, I know exactly where I was. I was sitting in LA on a beach and I had my toes in the sand, and I was really excited to not be in snowy Calgary. And then by March 9th, I was grounded, and this was going to be a very different life. And that is just the stages of COVID. So I want to kind of stop and talk about what those stages look like. And it's not really necessarily just to talk about the stages of what COVID is, but this was a crisis. And crises all ran around the same kind of steps. Something bad happens, and now you need to make sure people are safe and secure. So with COVID, the very first thing that happened, everyone rushed to go back home. We needed to be safe, secure, and think about the health of the people. But then all of a sudden, we have people who are working from their computers. They can't work from home. Businesses are getting shut down. And so it was such a response level that the next stage, you now had to accept the fact that there were going to be people working from home, but how do we make sure they have their laptops? How do we make sure that kids who have to do schoolwork are able to do their schoolwork from work from home, and families are able to work? And then offices are able to do business when everyone is in their own places. From there, everyone, I would say, is in a different stage, whether it be US, Canada, state to state, city to city, whether it be, I'm happy to report that several people I talk to on a day-to-day basis are back in their offices. Some people are working from wherever. I've got, sadly not me, but friends who are working in Mexico or insert wherever else, where they're setting shop and going to live in these places for the next 6 months or however long this is going to be. The point of showing all this is we're going to be in all of these different stages for the foreseeable future. And it doesn't matter where you are, the data that you're using on a day-to-day basis needs to be secure. So whether that be if you're using data from the cloud, or whether you're VPNing into the office, and that data, you need to make sure that it's safe, secure, and you have a backup and a business continuity plan, because let's face it, we could be back in stage 1, or hopefully not for a very long time, we have another crisis like this where we have to go through the same cycle all over again. So some interesting things about COVID and about how our lives have changed so much in the last little bit is it's really changed the way we're communicating as businesses, whether that be just with meetings, as an example. My team, we have the 4 of us, all of us travel about 70% of the time, and we all live in different cities. So pre this, I would see my teammates maybe a few times a year, and we would talk and have monthly meetings, and that was it. Now we are constantly collaborating with many different tools. We're doing presentations like this. We collaborate together. We're talking about all the people about meetings like this where you guys give us so much information, and we're making sure to communicate. I know on Zoom, the amount Zoom stocks went up the first month was just crazy, and the risks also, which we'll talk about in a second. But the collaboration tools are so much bigger than they were, and they're so much more important that the first few times that Zoom went down, that was horrible across the board. We're using different chat functions, even whether it be in business or in personal life, you're now using these chat formats and communicating with people more on a more day-to-day basis. And that's all done virtually online. Even conferences. This is a great example right here. We don't have the opportunity to do this in real life anymore, and it's not safe. So now we're doing conferences on virtual platforms like this, and it's changing the way that we're performing, but it's also opening us to a lot of different risks. And let's face it, for a small to medium-sized business, what platform do you even know to use? How easy is it for you to decide which one of these tools you should use? Which is why working with a managed service provider like Roland Schorr Tower is such a great thing. They are now better equipped than ever to help small to medium-sized businesses help support you with the tools that you need in every one of these steps. So let's talking about remote workforce and how it kind of changed, how drastically. I'm not going to go through these all by one, but the point of these news articles is we just saw within minutes Zoom's rise, Microsoft Teams jumped up in days. But then with that also, the security cyber attacks jumped up drastically. I remember it was March 26th that Zoom had its very first attacks, where people were in meetings like this and a bad guy would come take over the whole meeting, do really inappropriate things, or just as some examples. When it comes down to it, more than half of businesses' emails have become victims of phishing malware. And that's because they recognize that everything that we do is in these solutions all the time now. We're in our emails, we're in Zoom, we're in Slack, we're on all of these forums all day, and there's a lot of information that we need that's very important. So there's something to be said and argued about, is this a really good idea, or is it just opening up us to more risk? The fact is, it's both. It is opening us up to more risk, but if you have a backup plan, you can be protected. So let's take a step back and we'll talk about the shared responsibility model. So we're going to talk about Microsoft Office 365 and G Suite. So your emails. If I was to say to you, if I took away your emails right now, could you still do your jobs? And a lot of the times when I attend these events, people will usually say, well, they've got my back, Office 365 and G Suite. So this is why we talk about the shared responsibility model. Both Microsoft Office 365 and G Suite, they actually say in those SLAs, that fine print that nobody ever reads. I know I don't. Well, I probably should. I mean, I shouldn't say that on an event like this, but you're responsible for any losses. And that doesn't necessarily a loss like someone's going to take everything away, which I'll cover in just a little second here. But if, say, there was just a small glitch that happened where 0.000, and it has happened, % of their information was gone, if that might affect you or your client. They're not responsible for it. You're responsible to make sure that you have that information backed up. G Suite, same thing. Different wording, but they're not liable for any data or intangible losses. So this is why I wanted to discuss SaaS protection. Both Office 365 and your G Suite. For statistical purposes, 1 in 3 companies lose SaaS data. How? Many different ways. And they're not always just the bad guys. Think about, say you have an employee who is leaving your company and they don't want you to know what they've been doing, so they just delete everything. Or you have a super helpful employee who comes into your office and likes to organize things, and so they go and organize and delete a bunch of emails by accident, well, on purpose, but emails that you needed, and now you can't get those back. Or you have to sit on hold with the companies to see, and that costs a lot of time and money. And then you have the person who just doesn't want you to know, who leaves the company and tries to steal as much information as you as possible. Those are some examples, but then SaaS data is still vulnerable to ransomware. So in both these presentations, you've heard ransomware a lot, and that's because it's happening. It's every day. I'm sorry, it sucks, but it is happening every day. So now we have this new ransomware called Ransom Cloud. Ransom Cloud can affect anybody who opens an email and accidentally clicks the wrong thing. I always like to think of a Friday. Friday at 3 p.m., the end of the day, you're busy, it's summer, it's winter, you're trying to get out, you're going camping with your kids. Think of the HR person who's doing a hiring spree and gets hundreds and hundreds of emails. Or, just like this, you have your Anti-Spam Pro. There's a good chance at the end of the day when you're that busy and you're that tired, you're going to click something just because you might not notice the fine details. So next you get a link like this, and yeah, of course you want to update your Anti-Spam Pro. Next thing you know, you click those links and your emails are gone. They are nice enough to tell you who those emails are for, so at least you have that much information. And they're super polite. Well, they'll give you a whole help desk and center to figure out how to get Bitcoin, how to pay them. They're really nice like that. But if you don't have a backup or business continuity solution in place, you either are hooped and can't get your information back, or you have to pay, which even the Department of Treasury in the US just released on October 3rd, I think it was, saying that they don't want you to pay. There is a chance that you'll end up having to pay, get in trouble with the US Treasury if you did pay. So, what would happen, and how would you recover to get back to work if that was your day-to-day, or if that happened to you on your computer? Just to show you kind of an example of what this would look like, a few quick slides. This would be, say you open up your computer one day, you click the wrong link, and now everything's kind of looking a little weird, and then you go in further and you realize everything's locked out, and then you get the sad screen of death. I don't know about you guys, but it was just Halloween and I watched a lot of these movies. That guy creeps me out. But this is your sad screen of death. When you're using a backup solution that Roland Schorr Tower can offer you, it's a much easier process. You get into the office or you open up your computer, you realize you accidentally made a mistake, everything's locked up. It's a simple 4 clicks, just like that. And you're back to being able to do the job that you could do in the beginning. So say if half an hour before this presentation, if my computer was shot, I would still be able to get back up and running within minutes and be able to present this presentation to you. That peace of mind alone is worth so much. So I covered a lot of information. I've got a couple tips and tricks, and then I'll turn it back to Tony. So first, protect your business, short term and the longer. So think about everything that's happening in your business. First, assess and understand the risk within your business. I don't know, education, having an educated decision on what is actually worth the risk within your business is really important. A lot of the times when we do different security, we'll do penetration tests or security testing with a business, and they're like, no, we're fine. Our business is really secure. And then you find out there are people whoever runs their admin accounts, they have the same password for everything, and the password's password. So knowing that risk is within your business as a business owner is really, really important, because I guarantee you, if you knew that, you probably would change it really quickly. But if you don't look, you have no idea. Making sure you have policies and procedures in place. I'm going to talk passwords a couple times, but just go back to that example. But say that password. If you don't have a policy and procedures in place for passwords, or for the security within your business, or when people are working from home and working from wherever with computers, are your staff's kids allowed to use their computers? do they have to be password protected? What risk are you opening yourself up to? So having those policies and procedures in place so that at least when you go back, if something does happen, you have that you understand, everyone on your staff understands the policies and procedures that need to be in place to keep your business up and running and secure. Ongoing employee training. I cannot say this enough. It's really, really important to not just do this a one and done. At Datto, we do training as soon as we start within the company, and then we get training every 3 to 6 months, and then we get penetration testing. So I'll get an email that looks like it's real, but I'm not quite sure if it's real. I got a Visa gift card from the company the other day, and I did not think that was real at all. I'm going a little bit over time, apologize. But I didn't think that was real at all. So I double checked, Slacked the person who directly sent that to me, and they let me know it was real. So making sure that you're testing your employees at all points in time so they know if an email that doesn't maybe look okay, they know what steps that they need to do to protect the business. Passwords. Creating, Yoshi, you said it too, it's super important. Creating and enforcing strong password and policies. Use a password manager. If you're not sure about what password manager to use, Roland Schorr Tower are there to help you out. They will help you with all of these things. But at the bare minimum, don't use the same passwords on your personal accounts and your work accounts. Don't use password 123 or any of those combinations. Phishing attacks happen. My dog's names are Batman and Robin. I'm not going to use Batman and Robin as my password. That's not a good idea. Just some examples. Never leave your devices unattended. The number of times I've been at a coffee shop or a hotel lobby bar and I watch people get up to either answer a call or run outside and they just leave their computer open and sitting. This goes back to the policies and procedures in place. Your staff and employees need to know that they cannot leave their devices unattended, unlocked, and open no matter where they are. Even in home when you have kids who are accessing who knows what within the same computers. Use MFA. I can't MFA on all devices. You have it. You should have it on your phone where you're doing the thumbprint scan or the eye scan to get into your emails, just in case all of these other things, say all of these other steps don't fall through. Say if someone does get your password, at least with MFA, you'll be able to be protected and you'll know that someone's accessing something when they shouldn't. Limited employee access. This is a big one, especially if you have any sort of admin accounts. Understanding who has access to what within your business is really, really important. Just as an example, if you have to ever go backwards, if there's something that happened, or if you had a ransomware attack and everybody in the business has access to absolute everything, the first person who gets attacked, now the bad guys have access to everything because that person has access to everything. These are kind of the reasons why it'll really, really help your business keep things secure and you're able to track everything that happens, every interaction with every client, or everything that you're doing within your business. Business continuity, that's our backbone, that's where we come from. Having that business continuity plan, it's not good enough anymore to just have a backup. If you don't understand business continuity, we can do another presentation. Come join us another time. But we're going to talk business continuity. Having it, if your computer's smashed right now on the ground, could you be back up and running within minutes, within hours? How long can you be down before it really affects your business? And this is when you sit down with Roland Schorr Tower or Tony or any of the team after the presentation and talk to them, you can actually sit down and find out through 10 simple questions what your risk level is and how the cost of downtime will actually be within your business if you were down for 1, 2, 3 days, weeks, months, what that would actually look like. And mobile device policy. Once again, same thing about your computers, everything else like that. The number of times I've gone around and people don't have their phones locked or they don't have a password on their phone. As a business owner, if your staff are accessing your business programs via their phones, you need to make sure that they understand that they need to have a password protected or whatever protected on their phones. Establishing an internal incident response plan. This goes back to the second slide that we looked at. This responses, like things like this are unfortunately going to happen. So having that incident response plan, so you know when a security threat happens, who to talk to, when to talk to them, what numbers to call, and everyone's on the same page. With that, I say thank you. You're headed in the right direction. And if you have any questions, please contact us, or please contact Tony, Roland Schorr Tower. And then they are also offering an awesome special for the show, 1 month free SaaS backups. Please reach out, contact them. And then I thank you guys so much for having me today. I had a good time. I hope you enjoyed yourselves.
Thank you, Desiree. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. So I would like to give away another gift card right now. So the next gift card, $50, is going to go to Tom Miller at Western Industrial Tooling. So we will get your email and we will get that out to you right after the meeting. And it looks like we're getting a few more questions in the queue, but we're going to hold off and answer those at the end. So Tony?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for all the presenters so far. And it's not too often, and I actually learned quite a few things on those two presentations. So I'm going to kick it off by just saying Danger Will Robinson, one of my oldest favorite TV shows. Cybersecurity is no longer something to consider. It's long become a strategic part of doing business. And it's something that we talk to our clients about all the time. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. We look at its security as a multi-layered approach, and we've kind of come up with the 7 layers of security as kind of our approach to things. And I'm just going to go through them real quickly. Some of these have already been addressed in the other presentations. So number 1, having good information security policies is the foundation of your business. Having great perimeter security like firewalls, having a VPN and how you connect, making sure that you don't have direct remote desktop into your business. Having good vulnerability programs like antivirus, anti-malware, filtering all of your email that's coming in and out of your business. Good phish testing. Good physical security. Your business is only as secure as if if you have HIPAA requirements, your server should be locked behind 2 doors. Your server should be behind at least 1 locked door, no matter what your compliance requirements are. Everything should be physically protected within your business. Backup protection. This is what we talked about, the business continuity plan. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later. And then having strong access control measures. This is having good, strong passwords. Are you using multi-factor authentication in the appropriate places? And then are you regularly monitoring and testing your systems? So are you monitoring to make sure you're using strong passwords? Are you testing multi-factor authentication? Are you testing to make sure your systems are secure the way that you have set them up? So a little bit about the services that we offer around our security and our security practices is at the root of it, we're a managed service company. So we come alongside and we become your IT department. But we also work with larger firms where these companies have an IT department, and we come alongside them and assist either as projects and do project consulting, or we become like a second arm to the IT department and just help make them stronger, whether it be consulting advice or tool sets. And so that's part of our managed services. We also have a help desk where we're manned 24/7 with technicians to take your calls. And so when you have that problem, you just pick the phone up and give us a call and we can help. We do have a great business continuity program where we have all the way from standard desktop backups all the way to a full business continuity review where, like Des talked about, if you have an outage, either servers go down or your entire business building is down, you can be back up in a matter of either minutes or hours. We have a good security practice where we will sit down and do full assessments and look at the risks to your business and make recommendations and make sure that you have all these layered approaches to reduce the risk to your business. We do definitely project consulting, and then we also are experts in cloud computing. And so we work with clients in Google and AWS and Microsoft 365 and Azure. So a little bit about some of these services that we've all been talking about. It's important to use proper perimeter security. You know, we use next generation firewalls that are actually like looking at data as it comes in and out of your network. We are taking advantage of VPNs for remote access and some of the newer technologies that are coming out around that. And even some of the stuff that you maybe not have heard of, like DNS protection. And so these are things that can really help prevent ransomware from actually loading up. We use SentinelOne as our endpoint protection, but this is a list of some of the next generation antivirus platforms that are out there. Some of them are Cylance and Huntress Labs, Carbon Black, and FireEye. These are just some of the ones that we have seen out in the wild that are really good. If you don't have one of these, it's definitely something that you should be looking into. Email security. 86% of all ransomware and malware attacks come in through email today. That is a modern statistic, and it's something that we take very seriously. All of our clients have go through our email security system where we're filtering all for viruses, for spam, for phishing, and that's both inbound and outbound because that's the main vector that these things get in, and that's been talked about in both presentations. It's also a great thing about if there is ever an outage and you ever need to get an email recovered really quickly, I get hundreds of emails a day, and I can block certain emails that I don't want to get on a daily basis, and I can get them from my spam list, and I can release them when I want to. Security updates. So do you have a good patching policy in place? Can you go to your business and say, all of my computers are up to date on Microsoft security patches, or up to the date this month, last month? Is it being monitored? That's something here at Roland Schorr that we take very seriously. We test the patches, we roll them out, and then we can, on a verified methodology, we make sure that all of your servers and your computers are patched, and make sure that the ones that are coming out that are critical security ones go out immediately, and the ones that don't need to go out immediately get tested first before they're rolled out. And then things like network hardware and firewalls and other devices that have firmware patches that most people don't think about, those things have vulnerabilities too that need to be addressed, and we stay on top of those also. So we also offer security awareness training. You can put every security program, every software, every piece of security hardware on the planet into your business. All it takes is one click. One user to click one thing at just the right time, and it makes everything moot. So education is one of the cores of our security program. And like Des had mentioned when she was talking, we work with our clients so that when a new employee comes in, they get some basic security training. And then on a regular basis, we send you penetration emails, basically phishing attempts that trick your employees into clicking on them. And when they do, they get a short micro video training on how to not fall for that again. And then on a regular monthly basis, they also get another email with micro trainings on different topics around security, just so that it stays up to date and they don't forget, because it's the American way. We learn something new and it's all fresh in our mind, but then we just forget and we get busy. And so we want to keep it top of mind, security. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the business continuity, because this is critical. Me as a business owner and the technical person, it's the worst conversation to have with a business owner, to say, you didn't have good backups, or you didn't take our advice, or you've never worked with us before, but you've called us and you've come in for us to fix things, but you didn't have backups and you've lost data. I never want to have that conversation. So having a great backup plan is crucial. And so a business continuity plan has multiple components. The first part is the IT plan, right? Having great backup and recovery. It should have ransomware detection so that you don't have ransomware in your backups. You should have to be able to instantly virtualize everything so that you can be back up and running quickly. And you should be able to instantly hybrid cloud those backups so that if you lose your entire building, earthquake, fire, whatever, if it's a major disaster, your business can be back up and running in a cloud data center within, a short period of time. But most people just stop there. And what's important is there's a business aspect to this. There's a business part of the disaster plan in business continuity. There needs to be a step-by-step. What do you do for the business in the case of disaster? It needs to be spelled out, because when disaster happens, everyone's going to lose their head and no one's going to know what to do. And so we help you come up with that step-by-step plan, and we help you come up with an emergency call list all the way down to who's the first person that gets called to execute this plan, and then the next person, and then the next person. And then it's important to have an entire listing of all your vendors, all their contact information, and have all of this in basically a book, a playbook, so that when the disaster strikes, you can just grab that playbook and you've got an action plan ready to go. You don't have to create this stuff on the fly. That's what the importance of a business continuity plan is. So again, I'm going to end it right there, and we're offering a little bit of a promo here, 1 month free of the SaaS backups, and we'll do an assessment on your current infrastructure. You've reached your first month when you sign up with us, and I'm going to hand it back over to Michelle to roll us right into our Q&A. Thank you for attending and listening.
Thank you, Tony. We really appreciate everybody's participation with our speakers today. As you can see, education is key. Let us help you out. If you're just looking to do an assessment to see where you're at, we're happy to help. Our next $100 gift card that we are going to be giving away is going to be to Cynthia Wright with Jet City Laser. And last but not least, we are going to go ahead and roll into Q&A. The first question that we have is going to be for Yoshi and Tim, and it's going to be, when do we call you versus the FBI, meaning the Secret Service versus the FBI?
So as Tony said, as part of your business recovery plan, you should have a playbook. And what we and our colleagues over at the Bureau would suggest is, as part of that playbook, you have who you're going to contact from law enforcement. So we would suggest that you reach out to us and the Bureau ahead of time to kind of chart that path. We will say that if an incident is espionage or terrorism related, we haven't done that since World War I. So all of that goes to the Bureau. Where the Secret Service is really good is usually when there's a financial motivation for the cyber incident. So call us ahead of time, call our colleagues over at the Bureau ahead of time, and get to know we have different corporate cultures. We have different ways of going about things. So I would suggest you call both of us ahead of time and then make that decision from there. But again, if it's espionage or if it's terrorism related, it goes right to the Bureau.
Thank you. So it looks like the next one is going to be for Des. The first question that we have is, can't I just pay for the ransom, or can't I just pay the ransom fee?
There you go. I was doing the mute thing again. Sorry, guys. Well, I have so many different answers to this, and the answer is no. You could, but first, both Yoshi and then I'll say it as well. There's no guarantee when you pay the ransom that you're gonna get your stuff back. There's no guarantee that they're going to remove it or remove any of the malware in your system that could be just sitting there. So that's one thing. Number two, we already talked about how the US government is now telling you not to pay. And then also and you could face US sanctions because of it. And then also when you're paying ransomware, you're funding the bad guys. Like that money is going to the deep, dark web where really bad things are happening. And you're giving money to them. Would you give money to a really bad guy who like robbed your bank? Like nicely? Probably not. So definitely, I would never ever recommend it. And the world is definitely going along the ways where we're even seeing that there's cyber insurance policies that are denying to pay ransom when businesses have been hurt, and there's lawsuits that are happening right now because they're saying this is an act of war. This is not something that's covered under we will not pay it.
Thank you. Yoshi, Tim, do you guys have a position being with the federal government that if there's should people pay?
So from the government standpoint, that's a business case scenario that folks have to make the decision. Obviously, if the government is saying that you might be violating international sanctions, that's a concern as well. I would not, when we talk about cyber incidences, I would not rush to the conclusion that you're only under one type of attack if you have a cyber incident. It's entirely, I think the latest statistics are the bad guys are generally in your system for about 108 days before they get detected. So it's entirely possible before they launch the ransomware attack that they maybe have already exfiltrated payment card information, PHI, intellectual property. So you may be under more than one kind of attack, and it may be when they believe that your information security team is getting close that then they start to launch their ransomware attack. But there may be more there than just the ransomware attack.
Agreed. So our next question looks like it could be for Des as well. And that is, how often should I be backing up my data or my information?
Perfect. That is a great question, and it can definitely vary per business. The good news is, though, we have a calculator that we can sit there with you. Tony and his team can actually walk you through it. And like I said, it's just simple 10 questions. And it's called the RTO, so recovery point and recovery. I can't get the words right, but you're looking at what the cost of downtime would be. So how often are you backing up your information? And then how long would it take you to get back up and running? So say for a university professor, if you spend every day grading your papers and you're only backing up your information once a week, and then you lose that, that's a lot of work that you've just lost. So going over this calculator, I go back to the education, you're making an educated decision. Going over this calculator is really, really valuable to any business because it'll actually, that answer, you'll be like, okay, my business, it'll cost me $5,000 an hour to be down. And I could potentially lose, if I'm only backing up once a day, I could potentially lose a day's work. What does that actually look like? Can I afford that? Or is it should I be backing up my information every 2 hours and then have a business continuity solution in place that if things crash, I can back up and running within minutes?
Absolutely. So I know we're running up to the hour. We do have a few more questions that we won't actually be able to get to, but Tony, one of the last questions is for you, and it's, what's the one thing that I can do to protect my business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that the one thing that I would suggest to businesses to protect themselves is there isn't just one thing. It's definitely a multi-layered approach. You've got to have protection on the desktop. You've got to have the security policies in place, even if they're just minor. Like, hey, everyone has to have a password, and it can't be your mother's maiden name. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be complex for small businesses. It can be very basic. It's like passwords. They have to be at least 8 characters, and they have to be complex. And we're going to set up multi-factor so you don't have to change your password every year or every 90 days. And then we're going to have great backups to protect us.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to take up any more time because I know we want to keep you guys to your schedule. Thank you so much for all the attendees and all the presenters here today. Let us know if we can help you out with any of the security assessments that we do offer. And we've also extended a promo to you guys for attending this. We will also be sending out the emails for the gift cards. And just thank you guys again and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.